Maybe. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to put my cup right here.
See, who needs fancy gadgets
That's right.
when we have coffee cups and walls?
Okay, so first question.
Yes.
What initially drew you to the field of counseling?
So I actually started out in early childhood education, and I taught special ed preschool for 4 years, which I really enjoyed. But I found that I was really drawn to the kids with behavioral issues in my classroom. So the kids that just were dysregulated or that were just kind of explosive behaviors, and I really enjoyed working with them, and I really enjoyed working with the families and coming up with plans. And so then I had started grad school going for school counseling. But I was living in Chicago at that time, and they were just really misused. It was more for IEP management and not really that like in-depth work. So then I had transitioned to community mental health.
Okay.
And really found that was a good fit because I got to do the hands-on work. I got to explore kind of what was driving some of the behaviors, and it just really felt like a good fit for me. So yeah, so definitely. I didn't start off with the path, but I kind of found it. And
I have found in my own life that's how things work.
Yeah.
You know, you think you have a plan, but then life tells you, no, you don't.
No, you don't. I don't care about your plan. So I always just tell people, like, I just kind of fell ass backwards into it. I just let it happen.
I think that's the best description I've ever heard. Fell ass backwards into it. I love it. I'm going to quote that. So your bachelor's degree is in early childhood education. Now my wife's is the same, so I have a little bit of familiarity.
There you go. So you know.
Do you find yourself using any of the skills or information that you got from your bachelor's in?
Yeah, because I do a lot of work with kids. So I will pull like some of the activities I use in my classroom. I think it kind of helps. You know, I just naturally really enjoy engaging with kids and groups, and so I find that I use a lot of like the classroom management stuff, and like I have a teacher voice and all of those things. Like I just naturally kind of incorporate into my therapy.
So teacher voice.
Yes.
I've been told I have a drill sergeant voice.
There you go.
We'll go with that.
It works.
So how long have you been a practicing counselor?
4 years and some change.
Okay.
So it was 4 years in August, I think.
And I feel this question is a little bit awkward because I'm not exactly sure what I'm asking. So bear with me.
Okay.
Do you have a particular area of counseling expertise? And I'll use Megan as an example. She has a very feminist viewpoint.
Sure.
The LGBT, the fourth column or fourth. I'm sorry, I'm using words that I don't know enough to use. But do you have a particular area that you specialize in?
So working for a community mental health facility, we don't necessarily specialize because we do welcome all people into our doors. But I find like maybe the areas I'm most passionate about would be kids, families, young adults. I feel a little clunky sometimes when I'm working with populations I'm not super comfortable with or I don't know very much about. So this past year, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with like the S&D population.
I'm sorry, S&D.
Like severe mental diagnoses.
Oh, okay.
So like very pervasive bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, psychosis. So those diagnoses I don't have as much experience with. So I feel a little clunky there.
Okay.
But I'm definitely I feel more confident working with adolescents, young adults.
Okay.
I like working with adolescents in groups.
Okay.
You know, so kids in crisis, love that too.
All right. Very good. During the time that you've been practicing as a counselor, have you seen any changes in the field?
Well, my role has changed a lot throughout my time. Like I initially started with home-based, and then I transitioned to ongoing individual. So I think just through that, I think there's been big shifts. Like I think there's a big focus on like inclusion in the community, like kind of pulling in stakeholders and pulling in people who are involved in certain cases. I do think kind of therapists are kind of out there a little bit more. I think there's more awareness.
Okay.
I think, although in smaller communities there's still a lot of stigma around mental health diagnosis, I do think there is a push to kind of build awareness and kind of to help accessibility.
A question that I interviewed Mimi Todd as well, and one of the questions that I posed was, do you feel like there's more mental health resources available, or not necessarily that, but do you think that the need for mental health resources is greater, or that some of the stigma regarding mental health, requesting or seeking mental health services?
Isn't that the $1 million question?
I only have $1.95, so.
I don't know if the need is greater or just people are more willing to seek it.
Okay.
And I think there is some generational differences. I mean, I see that in my office as well. Like, I don't have a lot of, middle-aged farmers in my office. There's still a huge stigma, especially in rural communities. They don't, I think there's a lot of shame built in around seeking support and not being able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So I do think some of the younger generation is much more willing to seek help and support in order, to help themselves, or to at least help themselves feel better. But I don't know if the need is greater. I think maybe they're just seeking it more.
Okay. Just thought that was because the age of information that we live in. There, to me, seems to be a more prevalent availability. You can go online and talk to a counselor.
Sure.
But
we have the crisis text line. We have, a lot more
all that stuff, so
resources.
I think it's great that some of that stigma is starting to erode. Most definitely.
And I think maybe people have a less tolerance now for not feeling good. Because we have younger generations who are so used to instant gratification with social media and Snapchat. We seek so much external input. I want to feel good, so I'm looking all around here. And so then when it's nighttime, it's quiet, and I just have to sit by myself. It's hard for me to sit with that noise, and I don't know what to do with it.
That's interesting.
So.
See, that's why I love doing this.
There's so much, right?
Just aspects I hadn't considered before. So that's fascinating. Thank you for that. Do you have a favorite part of the job?
I have so many favorite parts of the job. I always feel really recharged after sessions. I feel really great when I'm able to have even a session that's been really difficult. It's challenging. It forces me to be very present, which I find very exhilarating, to not have to be able to block out all the other noise, everything else that's going on, and be present. And I just love working with my clients and being able to see them grow or see them in process of working through something very difficult. Those are definitely my favorite. I like working with community stakeholders as well. I go out to the Seneca County Youth Center. I really enjoy that. Just to kind of see other people's perspectives who are not in a mental health setting. Because I think sometimes, in a community mental health facility, we kind of exist just within ourselves. In our own little building. We don't get out very much.
Okay, sure.
So it's really nice to be able to go and work with the juvenile court or the youth center, just to kind of see where they're coming from and be able to network with them and kind of help them grow a little bit more.
That's really
mental
interesting. A lot of people, I would think a lot of people would almost feel the opposite of that. We're going out to the center and being. I love those kids a lot. They're so fascinating. And they need to be loved.
They do. They can be very challenging, but they're also, and I do think it's different being a small community. We don't have 300 kids out there. We have 12, and you get to know them. So it is really nice to be able to go out there, and I think the staff that they have is really great and really interested in not just penalizing them, but helping them grow. And I think being able to be out there and be like, hey, well, have you considered this? Or, maybe we could add some of these things to to help.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So the flip side of that, what's your least favorite?
Oh, paperwork.
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 Amen to that.
Bureaucracy, like all of those little pieces that feel like they must tie your hands a little bit. You know, things that, you know, there's, you know, insurance will put, like, I can only see certain insurances for a certain amount of time or a certain frequency, or there's so much nitty gritty pieces that have to be taken care of. And
sure. I'm a retired military officer, so when you talk about paperwork
So you
and
know.
bureaucracy, oh yeah,
You got it, yes. And
see how to go.
yes, it's tough, and it gets very frustrating, you know, and when you have certain things that you have to focus on and you don't really want, like, I don't care about productivity. I'm not interested in it, but I have to pay attention to it, and I have to care about it because I work for an agency that has to survive so they can provide this service, and I have to do my piece.
So, forgive me for asking, but you're at Firelands.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when you talk about the community, do you mostly see clients who are there of their own free will, or because they've been?
My caseload is prominently people who are coming in on their own.
Okay.
Because I really only do mental health. I have the capability to do AOD work, but that's
I'm sorry, AOD.
alcohol or drug.
Okay.
That's just not my area of expertise. That's not something I'm very good at,
Okay.
to be honest, because then I always put a mental health spin on it. Like, so where's this drug use coming from? Like, I'm always going back
Okay.
more so to, you know, where my area of skill lies.
Okay.
So most of my people are coming in because they want to, but we do a lot of court
Okay.
work as well.
Very cool. Let's see. I'm gonna skip around a little bit if you don't mind.
Please.
In your opinion, how important, and we'll go on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for mental health counselors to advocate for their clients within the community?
To advocate for clients within the community, I say very important. Like an 8 or a 9.
8 or 9? Okay. And how do you as a counselor advocate for your clients?
I would say that I advocate, like, going out to the youth center and talking to the
Okay.
staff there and working to help build, you know, programs that these adolescents need. And I think just in my interaction within the community, like who I talk to and who I work with, even if it's, you know, like I'm just having a conversation here with just as my own private citizen, you know, advocating for more inclusivity and understanding and kind of helping people understand a little bit more.
You brought up, and I joke, you know, I retired last year, and you know I'm finally out in the Gen Pop. I've been exiled. I've been released to the civilian population. So when you talk about you know, talking as a private civilian,
Yes.
that resonates with me. And along those lines, and again, if I'm digging too deep, please let me know.
That is also one thing about therapists is I no longer have normal social decorum. I don't think there is too deep. I tend to have very clunky, casual conversations with people anymore. I don't know how to do it very well. So I'd much prefer
I'll be right.
the digging.
Very good. Do you live in the community?
I do.
Okay.
So I live in the rural area, but we do most of our living in Tiffin.
Okay.
And I practice in Tiffin.
Okay. As such, do you see that as a benefit or as a detractor?
Ooh. It is one I struggle with.
Okay.
And I think that there are pros and cons to it because you do have to be very cognizant about having those conversations with your clients. Like, you will see me in the community, and I'm not going to engage you. I'm not going to. So just kind of setting out those conversations with people so that they know. I had an experience just last week where I was, you know, at the gym and I was in the locker room changing, and there was someone that I had worked with in the past. So it's, you know, you'll have those experiences, and it's just, you know, being able to address them on the front end allows. I wouldn't even say it mitigates some of the feeling of uncomfortable, but it kind of prepares everybody for it.
It establishes the ground rules.
Yeah, like this is what it's going to be. It's going to happen,
Okay.
and this is how we're going to navigate it. And then we kind of come back together. If anybody else had felt uncomfortable with it, when you come back, I do think there's some benefit to it because when they're talking about where they're going or the community that they live in, I think that's a real benefit because I really get it. I really get where you live because I live here too, and some of it's a little strange because sometimes it feels everybody knows each other. And so when one person's talking about it, I make connections over here, and I think it does allow me to create like a really sound background sometimes.
Sure.
It gives me as a therapist a better understanding of what's really going on in a dynamic. If I'm not careful, I think it could color how I view clients sometimes.
That's a great point,
So I
yes.
have to be very aware of that, not to prejudge or be like, oh, this person or that person or this situation or so I have to be very mindful about how I'm coming in to meet someone.
One of the, and I've talked to Megan about this at length. One of my biggest concerns, and part of this is for the assignment,
Mm-hmm.
part of this interview is for the assignment, but a lot of it is a little bit more selfish for me.
Sure.
So,
It's so helpful to be able to talk to people
it is.
in the field. That's how I decided to go from school counseling to regular counseling.
Okay.
Just having those conversations with people.
As a military officer, especially as an officer, we were pretty much under the microscope on base and off.
Mm-hmm.
Our behaviors, our this, that, and the other. I mean, we lived in a fishbowl. We called it
Right.
a fishbowl. Do you ever feel like you live in a fishbowl as a community mental health provider?
Sometimes. I mean, if I see someone that I know, I'm much more cognizant about what's going on or who I'm with or what they're doing. But as I've gotten into it more, I've realized like I kind of just live who I am, and then I think kind of going through the process of as all therapists do, kind of learning who we are and kind of what our values are. I find that I've gotten more comfortable with that, so I'm not as nervous about people seeing me out in the community with my family or engaging in things that I'm passionate about. Like if my spouse and I want to go to a bar and have a drink, sometimes I do feel a little uncomfortable with those kinds of things.
Okay.
So sometimes we'll go out of town. Or I'll just prepare. I'm like, hey, if we need to go, I'm just going to let you know.
Okay.
Like we have those conversations on the front end too. Like,
Code word.
yeah, like, hey, I need to leave. Just need to go. And then we just
Fair enough.
let that happen.
I'm going to go back to one of your earlier answers when you talked about what you love about being in the career field. How every time, and forgive me if I'm misrepresenting what you were saying at all, but as I understood it, you're saying that you come out of a session with a client energized and because you were present. Because now, I would think that sometimes those can be very draining.
Yes.
Those interactions. So, getting into the area of self-care, how do you take care of you?
I think, especially like in the moment at work, like I have some really great colleagues that if I have a really difficult session or something that has resonated really hard with me, I will actively go seek out my coworkers, and they get it. They're in the trenches as well. They know that you're going to have those really bad days. So I'll go and I'll talk with them, or I'll process things, or if it's after work, I have other friends that are in the field that understand, and so I can be like, hey, I had a really hard day.
Yeah.
So just having my own opportunities to process it, or for me, little things like going outside, getting coffee, being in a space where I can just like people watch, but I don't have to engage with it. I can just sit and enjoy it, and then just let my mind wander. And I've found other things that I've enjoyed, cross stitching. Like I've found out that I'm really like a 7-year-old woman. It's really great. Cross stitching, hanging out with my cats, knitting, those things.
So you actively seek out
Yes.
self-care.
Yes, because I have had points in my career where I have gotten really tired, gotten really frustrated, and you notice a difference. You notice a difference in the way that you feel, and the way that you're providing client care, and I it's not a good feeling. It doesn't feel good. I feel bad about how I'm providing care to someone because that's not the standard that I expect of myself.
And I completely understand that. I've reached a point of burnout as well in my previous career.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that. And there's a poster in the Agler building on Heidelberg, at Heidelberg. It says, fill your cup up first. You can't fill anybody else's cup from an empty cup. So talking about self-care and things like that. So, and that's something I'm still learning about because I was never very good at it.
Sure.
It was horrible.
Sometimes people who are just naturally present and giving to others are not very good at receiving that own care.
That's between your answer and Mimi's answer and stuff I picked up. It's really given me quite a bit to think about as far as what does self-care look like?
Yeah.
Military,
Right.
tests and we're big studly men. We don't, government didn't issue us feelings, so we don't have any kind of stuff like that. So it's good to hear different perspectives on it. It really is. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
During the time you've been a counselor, what kind of changes have you, not only have you seen, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what do you want to see in the next few years, say 5 to 10?
In the mental health field in and of itself. And I guess, so speaking more as like in the rural community, I would again like more accessibility, more availability of qualified therapists, more ability to receive specialized services, because Firelands is one of the biggest providers in town, and we don't have therapists that are specialized. I mean, we have therapists that are very skilled, but we don't, like, this therapist doesn't only see young children. This therapist doesn't only see people with trauma. I mean, there's very skilled people there, but nobody who's like, this is my bread and butter. This is what I do.
So moving from the more generalized mental health care into the more refined specifics.
Yes.
And so you mentioned, youth, smaller kids, trauma. Any other areas that you see?
I think families definitely need a lot of support, a lot of help. And I think teamed with that, we need, collaborative mental health care. Like, we need more accessibility to psychiatrists and psychologists, and I want to see them, collaborating with one another and working together, to kind of get people to where they want to be.
Right. That's one thing that I'm personally very interested in is that collaborative throughout the whole life process of mental health, because it's an ongoing thing. It never stops. But not just the psychologists, but doctors.
Yeah.
People
Primary care is so invaluable.
Teachers, law enforcement, all of that stuff. It's I kind of imagine it as the recycling triangle.
Yes.
Because
they do. They all feed into one another. I think it would be helpful to have, in the schools, in elementary school, having a crisis team, having kind of people who can respond right now, kind of handle the situation and kind of wrap support where it needs to be wrapped, but then not shooting a bazooka at a fly swatter problem. Like, let's not overreact. Like, let's not throw everything at it when it's really just, maybe this kid's having a really crappy day. So helping to build awareness and responding appropriately.
Either of you have a Chevy with, like, a silver Chevy with a GAV license plate?
Yeah.
Your trunk is open.
Of course it is. Thank
Okay.
you. My trunk is always open. Thank you.
Do you need to?
No, there's nothing in my trunk.
Okay.
Because I always accidentally press the trunk button, so it's always open. It's fine.
Okay. little more personal question.
Yeah.
Again, moving from your experience as a special ed into the counseling, how has that changed you as a person?
Did that change?
Or
And career change?
How has becoming a mental health professional affected you, changed you as a person?
I'm very self-reflective in all my interactions with people. I think you can't turn it off. It doesn't go away. Like, I can't turn off that therapist brain anymore. So it's something that I'm always bringing into every interaction with people, which can be frustrating for the other person in the relationship. But I also think it makes me more genuine in my interactions with people, because I feel like I am very present in my communications with other people, and I only get in communication and conversations with people I really want to have those conversations with, and I have limited free time now, because I work full time, I have a family, so I feel like I'm much more selective in where I spend my time. So I am very aware of my self-care and, how I value that and how I value my time. I'm not very good at casual conversations anymore. I don't do that very well. I can't have conversations about the weather and nonsensical things because it feels...
The small talk is
just like a waste of my time anymore. I want to know who you are. What is the essence of you, instead of let's just kill 10 minutes being in a room together. So, I think there's been some good growth. I feel like I'm much more insightful in myself, and I'm very thoughtful in my interactions with others, but then I struggle with casual conversations and those things.
I don't particularly think that's necessary. I have always been horrible at small talk.
Yeah, don't like that.
The mandatory fun kind of things, where glib conversation.
I don't want to do it.
Agreed.
No, thank you.
Agreed. Where did you receive a master's from?
DePaul in Chicago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was your favorite course? What will you look back with the most fondness on?
Well, obviously I loved my internship classes because those were very hands-on. Some of my more technical classes, I felt, although they were difficult, where we had to do mock counseling sessions. We were set up in a room, and those were difficult, but I felt like those were very valuable to me.
Okay.
I liked most of my classes. I think the only ones I didn't like were research and appraisal. I didn't like my class.
I won't disagree with that.
I just didn't like that. Research is not necessarily my strong suit, so I'm much more, I want to do the things.
Yes, hands-on.
Yeah. So all the classes that allowed me to do that. I loved my multicultural class, because at least at my point in my own human development, at that point, I was 22. I needed to be challenged. I needed my paradigms to be shifted. I needed you to challenge some of the thoughts that I had going on. So that class was really helpful and a safe place for me to explore those things. So.
Do you find yourself using any of the specifics on a day-to-day basis? Or have you kind of melded everything together into a style that you call your own?
I would definitely say my style is pretty eclectic. I'm very client-centered. I kind of, I allow things to go. I always say I allow it to go where it needs to go. Okay. I've had times where I've gone in with a plan, and that's when it inevitably blows up in my face. So I've gotten very comfortable in just allowing things to be, and for my clients to take me where they need to be, and to trust them that they're the expert on what's going on. But then I will incorporate in certain techniques if we're working on something specific. Okay. So certain trauma activities or certain CBT skills, just based off how my client is presenting.
Okay. Well,
I don't think that answered your question though.
Yeah,
I think just, I think the most important thing in my grad school was the internship and having those classes where I practice some of those skills. because I fell on my face a handful of times. And I think those experiences were so valuable for me to be like, I'm not going to do that again. Or if I do that again, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to be more thoughtful in it. And I think just my own personal growth that happened through my master's program. And, I went and sought my own counseling through my program, which was very valuable for me. And it forced myself to think about things very differently, like through the multicultural class. Yeah. And I think that was very helpful to be like, hey, like, everybody else doesn't look like me, and everybody has a really diverse background. And
45 years old, previous master's degree, taking that multicultural class really widened the peepers a bit.
It does.
That aperture, it's in the military, just talking about the multicultural, in the military, everybody was kind of mushed in together. And I think one of the best things was learning about the different cultures. But in the military, there are certain cultures that don't exist. So with Megan's help, I've really kind of opened my aperture to the LGBT, which is just fascinating. So when you talk about shifting paradigms, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and you get to like experience these things that you didn't even know were there because you didn't know to look for them. It wasn't like you were intentionally blind to. I didn't know it was there.
You didn't know what you didn't know.
I didn't know. Right. I didn't know it. I don't know what I don't know.
Absolutely. I think that I've gotten all of my regular questions.
All right.
Is there anything else you'd like to throw in as I won't say young and aspiring, but as an aspiring future counselor?
Well, I guess what drew you? I mean, from being in the military and having that life experience to now making such a change. What drove that for you?
When it comes to, I was Air Force, so when I talk about chest thumping, it was mostly turning wrenches and things like that, fixing airplanes. But I was a commander, and one of the things that I absolutely loved was that one-on-one interaction that I would get with my airmen. Usually it was under other than wonderful circumstances, but kind of like you were talking about, being able to sit down with them and say, okay, what's going on? Because a lot of my peers were like, oh, where I've always been a little more sensitive throughout my life. And I've been in their shoes. I was an enlisted airman, so I can understand some of the things. So for me, it was, I want to continue that one-on-one helping, because there was nothing greater than sitting down with an airman and being able to say, okay, well, here's where you are, here's where you need to be. Let's figure out how we can help you get to where you need to be from where you are, and then watching them get there.
Right.
And was there some personal pride? Absolutely. But moreover, it was watching the pride on their faces.
Right.
Wow, I didn't know I could do